Chad, I was following the Alex Murdaugh trial in South Carolina that took place over the course of the last 6 weeks. It was scheduled to go originally on the docket for 3 weeks. And this thing drug out for an extra, like double the amount of time. But it only took 3 hours for the jury to deliberate and come back with guilty verdicts of Alex Murdaugh, now found guilty of murdering his wife and his youngest son. And he's led away to prison after today's sentencing, made it official, where he gets double life sentences without the possibility of parole. And now, I mean, there are legitimately like 99 other counts that he faces in other cases across this low country of South Carolina region, like a 5-county region. So he'll be back in the headlines a lot, but this was the one that they had to, that trumped the rest. They wanted this one first, and then they're getting to all the money laundering and stealing and everything else that went down. But people were saying it could be a hung jury. I didn't see how, because when he took the stand, the defense was, well, SLED, the South Carolina law enforcement agency, they immediately put out a statement like the next morning that said, don't worry about it. The community shouldn't be alarmed. The killers aren't on the loose here. And the defense was, well, why did you jump to that conclusion so quickly? Well, that's a great defense.
Yeah.
You've zeroed in on one person. But if you really think about it, he didn't do it either. He went back to his house, according to his story. He was driving around town the day after that. He didn't act like he was under any type of danger. To me, that's because he killed them. And I think that's what the jury went back and discussed.
You were also pointing to there was some information on the OnStar tracking of his truck.
Yeah, because originally he
as
said
to
he wasn't there.
where he was, and then
Yeah, they've got like 3 or 4 homes. And at this one of their farms, they've got
Moselle is the main residence.
Dog kennels, and he claimed he wasn't there when he was. So, and he's also, he hired a hitman to try to kill him, like himself, after these homicides took place.
Yeah, you would think that if there was a vigilante on the loose that were going after him for the boat accident, which some thought at the time,
right,
you'd probably be a little bit worried if your wife and child got killed.
I would
You'd
think
be
so.
mourning them.
You would need protection around you.
Yeah, you would hire protection and really be concerned that someone was coming after you. That wasn't the case because, as he was convicted of, he's the one who murdered his wife and son. My big takeaway from all of this, well, first off, I have a hard time saying Alex Murdaugh because it's Alex is his name.
Yeah.
So
it's weird.
You're just calling yourself something that's not how that spelling, that's not how you say that name, but whatever. We saw the death of a good old boy system in a town with this murder conviction. I mean, we're talking generations of wealthy people, big fish, small pond in Hampton and the Low Country, with the Murdaughs and then the other family, the Lafitte family, that's being charged with crimes also, that started Palmetto State Bank and owns that in the region. Now there's some crimes they've been charged with as well because their dealings with the Murdaugh family. That was my thing was, man, this is an institutional thing with this family and money. And I'm not saying that the family was, out killing family members throughout time, but it fell apart with Alex Murdaugh. And this whole story with addiction to pain pills, with financial crimes, and just flat out robbing people and stealing their insurance money, and then the murder of 2 family members,
and possibly more.
It was crazy. I'm watching and thinking, okay, this is obviously a big change in this guy's life, and we're getting some closure with all of this. But on top of that, I think this could be a new chapter in that whole area and that whole family and what happens next. He's got his oldest son that was there. Yeah, so in the courtroom with him, Buster Murdaugh also.
They did not have any victim impact statements today at the sentencing. And the prosecutor made it seem like he didn't have any because no one was on the side of what the jury came to decide, which was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So he's got his son Buster, and then his brother, John Marvin is his name.
Yeah.
Again, like the intrigue is just the family and like how they're intertwined with all this. From back, I think they believe in Alex Murdaugh and not the jury here, which is overwhelming to me evidence that he did it. but it's all circumstantial, right? Didn't have blood on him or anything like that. But if you go back through the web of this, that's what makes the intrigue. So that's why it gripped the interest of Netflix and HBO with the series that they have. From the boat accident with the son that was murdered, the lawsuits that they face potentially off of that, and how he would go in. He had a housekeeper that slipped and fell, quote unquote. He would go in and try to represent them and then never actually pay out the money when essentially he's suing himself, which is what he was trying to do on the boat accident as well in the hospital. But his grandfather has a mural, a portrait on the courthouse wall that they had to remove so they could have a fair trial, that no one would look at the name of the grandfather because the Murdaugh family has ruled over this area for 100 years.
It's crazy. I mean, the whole story with the boat accident, going back to that, but just the whole family lineage and how they controlled every lever of power in that area. As solicitors, as politicians, as lawyers, their ties to law enforcement, it really is crazy. And now to see all that crumble with this case and with these crimes. Does John Marvin, by the way, does he pronounce his first name Josh? It's John, but it's pronounced
Marvin.
It's pronounced Josh. It's a completely different word, actually, that just fires me up every time I hear him say it. It's Alec. No, it's not. It's Alex. You'd have to change your name legally to A-L-E-C if you wanted to be called Alec. It's a crazy, crazy story. I went down the rabbit hole all weekend.
Oh, on top of this,
and watched both
he has a
docuseries.
South Carolina.
I didn't see much of the trial.
He
Saw
has
the
a
verdict
South
yesterday.
Carolina senator representing him as his lead attorney. How crazy is that?
It's nuts. It's nuts. And I do wonder what happens now. The thinking was when he tried to have someone kill him in a sort of attempted suicide was that he wanted to protect Buster, his oldest son, so that he could kind of continue on with the law firm and everything else.
He had reached the end of the road, and he wanted people to think that he actually didn't do it because the gunman, they came back for him.
Buster can't live there anymore, right?
I don't know. I don't know how it works.
I mean, think about that, though. That family name was just synonymous with wealth and power for generations. And now, what's it synonymous with? It's nationally famous.
Yeah.
So, much less in that area. So what do you do if you're him? He's a lawyer also. I know he went to law school at least.
Yeah. It's like Robert Durst.
Yeah.
With that whole saga that played out on Netflix. And, I mean, if you haven't seen that, that is the mic'd up session that is awesome, where they're interviewing him and then he admits to doing it but doesn't know he's still mic'd up in the bathroom. He forgets he's mic'd up with the law.
There was, I'm going back to the book I read on HBO, Tinderbox, but there is a chapter devoted to that. The Curse, I think, was the docuseries, where he admits it on mic. But all the legal, they had to go through HBO legal and everything of, we have evidence now of a crime, based on a documentary that we shot. How do you handle that? The watch party they had around it when that episode aired, when they had the confession and people in the room not knowing that it was going to be in that. But, you're also trying to protect. You got to work with law enforcement. And they did the right thing and went to the right channels and presented it to law enforcement when it happened. But you're also protecting something you worked really hard on in that docuseries, right? A documentary for HBO.
This will be a movie at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Who plays him?
That's a good question.
Alec Murdaugh.
Don't know. I'm trying to think of a redheaded actor. Brendan Gleeson?
Dave, you got one?
Jesse Plemons.
Yes.
Jesse Plemons. That's another good redheaded actor. Jesse Plemons. Landry, or Lance, as Coach Eric Taylor called him in Friday Night Lights.
Good article we could get up on OutKick, just like going through each character.
Trying to find a cast member for each one.
John Marvin is actually he's the guy that actually looks normal.
Please, Josh. It's Josh Marvin.
Sorry, Josh Marvin. Everybody else, I think, just kind of looks dumb. The entire family. You just first impression, you're like, this guy's successful when you see him?
Well, the kid just pisses me off.
I know.
One. I mean,
I'm supposed to feel sympathetic for him.
I don't want to speak ill of the murdered because his father murdered him, but just watching the first part
of it. I thought you meant the older one.
Oh, the older one too. But Paul really bothered. There's something about the look on his face that really bothered me. And the 911 call where Paul, Pawpaw, as they called him, they called him a boy, Pawpaw is the dumbest thing on earth.
Pawpaw.
It's so stupid. but where the 911 call where the housekeeper allegedly fell down the stairs and is just bleeding out of her ear and her skull on the ground, and the mom hands the phone to him and the 911 operator, and she's, does the person that's on the ground have a history of seizures? And he goes, ma'am, will you stop asking me questions? And she had to fire back and say, the ambulance is on the way. This is not slowing up the process at all, but you need to help me so I can help them with information when emergency personnel arrives. And I just heard that. I'm thinking, this is the woman who was your nanny, who basically raised you by all accounts, more than your own parents. And your response is, well, she doesn't look like she's alive. She's bleeding out of her ear. And then when asked a question, ma'am, will you stop asking me questions? Just no concern whatsoever.
This was Papa you're talking about?
No trauma. It's Papa on the phone doing it. Oh, gosh, just terrible.
Their grandfather's nickname was Handsome. They called him Handsome.
His name's actually pronounced Pete.
Oh, Pete. Yeah, that's right. Not Paul.
I know it's spelled Paul, but I actually go by Pete. That's how this name should be read. What a ridiculous family, though. The whole thing.
But the rise to prominence. I get the lineage handed down. Their attorneys, lawyers, very successful.
Kind of started with his granddad, right?
Yes,
I think that was the first powerful.
And maybe his father. But this crew's just inherited everything, and they're running around running the town.
Yeah.
And stealing millions and getting away with it for a long time. He stole like $5 million from his best friends in the practice, in the firm. He would cash checks twice. I don't know how he does that and get away with it for that many years. And he's addicted to painkillers for like 20 years.
Yeah, also the documentary brought to light a lot of things about he says he was paying the guy who ended up shooting him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thought that, okay, if he didn't do it, maybe he hired someone to do some things. Well, he's giving this guy like $21,000, wiring him money at a time. And people are saying, there's no pain pills that you're buying for $21,000.
Right.
And he's claiming that's what the transactions were all
monthly.
were for drugs. But, $21,000 worth of pain pills would kill you, one would think. That's way too much. So there's some speculation that he was hiring this guy to do more.
I think it was $50,000 a week is what he said on the stand.
At one point, $50,000 a week?
$50,000 worth a week?
See,
that's incredible.
My theory on this is he hired two guys to show up because there were two guns used. He hired two guys to show up and kill them. And he went back the first time thinking nervously that it was done, and it wasn't. And that's where the OnStar tracking came into play. And then he acts like he's got to go see his parents, which he did. And then he comes back, and they've been, killed.
So according to...
Because he had no blood on him. There's no evidence of anything like that. It's all circumstantial.
They said as far as records for payments to the drug dealer Eddie Smith, it totaled $2.8 million.
Yeah, that's not just...
It's a lot of Percocet.
That's not just opioids.
Yeah.
That he's paying that guy for. So it's going back to the privilege part of this.
Yeah.
Someone in their family started this and started the law firm and all that. And all these guys who inherited it, from Alex to Pawpaw and all of them, they just basically they used the Low Country as their own playroom.
Yeah.
Everyone and everything was disposable. People are my ATM machine.
They had law enforcement on their side.
Them. I will have law enforcement do whatever we need to get done to cover things up.
He had a badge he could walk into hospitals with and interview people. He'd get past the crime scene line.
Well, I remember in the documentary after the boat crash, Mallory Beach, the young lady who died tragically, her family was there every day as the search was going on, and they couldn't go down to the shore basically with police.
They weren't allowed to go down to see the accident or the scene.
And the day after the accident, they watch Alex Murdaugh go right down to the scene.
Just lifts up the caution tape.
Yeah, just lifts up and goes right in, and the cops are just welcoming in. And
he was doing that at the hospital as well.
As the family.
And Paul, his son, in the boat accident,
Paw,
he knew to get on the boat because he was alerted about the roadblocks for underage drinking and DUI. They had DUI roadblocks checking automobiles. And so that's why they hopped on the boat and went for a little cruise.
From a family tree standpoint, it's Randolph Murdaugh Sr., Randolph Murdaugh Jr., Randolph Murdaugh III. There is Randolph Murdaugh the fourth, but that's Alex's brother.
Oh, his older brother or something?
Yeah.
So is Buster A Randolph also? Is that his actual name?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Well,
I guess it could be.
They messed up when they stopped with the Randolph names.
But they call him Buster.
It's when they decided to name one of their kids Alex.
Again,
that's where it all went south.
his dad went by Handsome. That was his name.
Yeah, look, the
and they're not a handsome family.
Everyone in this family could have used a butt whipping at some point in their childhood. Paw, prime example. That kid should have been beaten up at some point and put in his place, but no one would because they didn't want the long arm of the law coming after them because the law was that family in this area.